So, one idea that they were talking about recently on the Daily Show is the idea that liberals all have this notion that they are independent thinkers and that they've all come across these amazing ideas and these witty, sarcastic retorts against conservatives independently. Like, oh, they just thought up all these amazing, witty, insightful observations all by themselves, and that they're these independent, rebellious thinkers. They're not just towing the party line, but they're rebellious, independent, you know, uh, thinkers who really stick it to the man. And what is the root of this mindset? Where do all these millennials in particular, and I think especially millennial girls, where do they all get this idea from? That they're this rebellious, individualistic thinker who's coming up with all these amazing ideas that no one's ever thought of before, and not just simply repeating the party line of the mass media, the educational system, and even to some extent the churches, the more liberal churches, and certain aspects of the government as well. Now, obviously, there's not a singular source for this phenomenon of, liberals thinking of themselves as, this independent thinking, rebellious archetype. But, I think there are two primary sources where it comes from. Now, one other thing on the Daily Show that it was Hateful Heretic who said this is that liberals get their reality from TV and from the media in general. And the thing is, we on the alt-right, I think we often have to slaughter people's sacred cows. We have to point out, even if you grew up with a certain TV show or a certain movie franchise or book series, as much as you love it, as cherished a part of your childhood as it may be, a lot of these series, these movies, these books, these TV shows have liberal messages, and they are instrumental in indoctrinating people into following these set molds, into fitting into these archetypes, these, like the bad boy, for instance, like the James Bond archetype. That's not the worst archetype you could fit into, but I mean, anyway, my point is, look, what is the one TV show that almost every millennial grew up watching? The Simpsons. And if you look at the character of Lisa Simpson, she is always portrayed as the smartest one in the family. There's even that one episode, that Bible Stories episode, where she's the only one who starts going to heaven. So the implication is that she's the only good one of the bunch. And there was even an episode that addressed this with the where Lisa discovers the Simpson gene and how she's somehow exempt from it. So she's portrayed as like the ray of light, the voice of reason within the family. And yet she is always a shitlib. And she always has these shitlib views. In one episode she becomes a vegetarian, in another one she becomes a Buddhist. She's always protesting against various things. I think there was an episode where she was opposed to like the Jebediah Springfield statue because, I don't know, he's a racist bigot or whatever. And wasn't there one where she was standing up for illegal immigrants? I mean, I get these episodes mixed up a bit because it's been a while since I actually watched the entire show. But yeah, Lisa Simpson is basically a liberal. Like, there's no doubt about that. That's part of her character. But she's also portrayed as, like, rebellious, well, not rebellious in the same way Bart is, but like rebellious in more of a civic-minded way. Like she's wise beyond her years. Yeah, literally beyond her years. She does not act like an 8-year-old. She acts more like a 14 or 15-year-old girl. Like that's one thing I've always had a problem with in these shows is South Park too, is just the fact that the kids always act much older than they actually are. But anyway, my point is, okay, so Lisa Simpson, she is basically the archetype, whether consciously or subconsciously, upon which all these millennial shitlib girls have their self-image based upon. This idea that, oh, you're smarter than the rest, you're smart, you're civic-minded, and you're a rebel, and you're fighting for what's right. You're social justice warrior, This idea, like, this is all stems from the character of Lisa Simpson, I think. And there's another character who millennials grew up with who also embodies these archetypes, and that would be Hermione Granger. Now, obviously Hermione Granger was fat material for a lot of boys growing up, but she was also a role model for a lot of girls growing up. And she also has this like civic minded, spunky little rebellious girl thing going on. And basically with her, it's like it's a similar characterization. She's the smartest one of the bunch. I think J.K. Rowling even said she identifies more with Hermione than anyone else, and Hermione is obviously a shitlib, so is J.K. Rowling, as you can see from her tweets. Hermione did this whole like elf rights thing, which wasn't even in the movies, but it was in the book. She found this organization called Spew, which was for like the rights of elves to be liberated. So it was sort of supposed to like parallel the civil rights movement. And she's always like complaining when she sees like a dragon or something being mistreated, like, oh, that's barbaric. And she's supposed to be the moral conscience of the group, and of course, the moral conscience of the group is somebody who's liberal minded. Oh, and she's also a mudblood herself, which of course adds to this whole characterization. And so yeah, these two characters. I mean, I don't know which of the two has been more influential toward. I think Lisa Simpson even more so, but because I honestly believe comedy is actually the most effective form of propaganda. That's why the Daily Shoah and the Daily Storm are so effective for us. So I think because The Simpsons is a comedy. And the reason why comedy is such an effective form of propaganda is you can just brush it off being like, oh, it's just a joke. But your mind doesn't interpret it as a joke. Your mind takes it seriously. But on the conscious level, you're saying, oh, it's a joke. It's just humor. Oh, we don't actually want to put anyone in ovens. It's just a joke. It's the same thing for liberal humor. It's a lot of it. They'll just say, like, oh, it's just a joke. It's just, oh, Lisa Simpson doing such and such, like getting angry at her father for having a pig on the spit at the barbecue. It's just a joke. It's just a joke. It's not like we're actually trying to indoctrinate kids and especially young girls, to not eat meat and to promote this fucking cocked vegan lifestyle where you just. And for men too, obviously, because these vegan girls, they try to get their fucking boyfriends to do or boyfriend, more like fucking more like fucking friend with benefits, or like one of their many polyamorous fucking partners, to do the exact same thing, where they consume tofu instead of meat and all this crap. So it's like, comedy is very effective as propaganda. So I personally think Lisa Simpson is the main archetype upon which this entire liberal millennial rebel girl, civic minded rebel girl, smarter than thou, so much smarter than everyone else, so enlightened, so intellectual beyond her years, so bright and wide eyed with enthusiasm, and always committed to justice and fairness and equality and love. Like these archetypes. I think it's mostly Lisa Simpson, but partly also Hermione Granger. So when you're asking, where do millennials get these ideas from? This idea that like being a liberal is somehow rebellious and individualistic, and that it's like, oh, it's you coming up with these ideas. This makes you. You're different from the other kids. You're smarter. All this stuff. Like, no, this is programming. This is fucking programming. This is predictive programming. There's a point to all this. The point is to make kids who consume this media view these people as role models. It's not accidental. It's not just comedy. It's in the case of Lisa Simpson, it's not just comedy. It's fucking programming. Okay, so I'm sorry if I have to slaughter your sacred cows here. Hey, I like The Simpsons growing up. I like Harry Potter growing up. I could still watch them and appreciate them, or read the books in Harry Potter's case. But no, I mean, this is propaganda, and we have to acknowledge it for what it is.